Hello, welcome to Vaults of Yesteryear. How's everybody's Friday doing? Day after New Year's. Hopefully, everybody had a good time. Holidays are winding down, right? So, about to jump back into work. At least that's the way it is for me. Hey, Mark, welcome. Glad to see you can make it tonight. Tonight, we're going to be looking at some stuff for solo RPG. So, this coming year, I'm looking forward to kind of doing more of that. I've dabbled in it a bit this last year, but I think I'm finding that I enjoy it. So I've got a plan together, and I'm gonna share that with y'all tonight a little bit in here, just a little bit, and be glad to discuss it and go as deep as you want to go. So looks like we got a couple of people on. Give me a sec to jump in. If you enjoy what's going on here, then let me know. Like I said, if you find things that you like, then we can look harder at it. So let's see. Yeah. So anyway, we're going to be going into. So a lot of these are independent type RPGs that are really small. But they have a very dedicated audience, and some of them are supported pretty well. I have a normal group that we play every other week, but I find myself with a lot of time to do other things sometimes. And I kind of get tired of computer games, and I really enjoy the role play aspect of a pen and paper type game because there's a lot more latitude and things that you can control. And I'm finding that these solo games really kind of scratch that itch for me. So, Mark, have you tried any yet, or is that a green field for you? Okay, well, maybe you'll learn something tonight. Good. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into it, and we can start talking about it. Let me share up here. Okay, so there's several of them on the docket, but the first one is D100 Dungeon by Martin Knight, and is this is part of a ecosystem of solo games that I've found that he has. He also has D100 Space, so you have a sci-fi and a fantasy version. This one, however, it was the first one, and it probably, it by far has the most support right now. And you can see that I put a few book covers on the page for this, but this is by no means not all that's out there. So, yeah, so the key thing with the D100 dungeon that I found, and I've went through this a little bit, and just enough so far to kind of create a character, and I've read the rules. So, but I've not yet jumped into a full adventure for this yet. So, you make a single character, and it is a percentile based system, of course, by the D100 moniker, right? But the range of things that you can do with it, you can tweak things to do just about whatever type of game that you want. So there are a couple of so you can see on the bottom left there, the D100 Lost Tome of Extraordinary Rules. So that's one of two optional rules books that are plug and play. You can, I mean, it has things in there like more detailed encumbrance, animal companion systems. It has things like animal components that you can scavenge and sell and things like that. So, hey Jim, thanks for joining. But like I said, it's completely modular. You don't have to use. I mean, the bare rules out of the box are just fine. You really don't need the extras, but it is there that if you want it. And the cool thing is that it has an outdoor element in addition to dungeon. So you've got a book called the World Builder, right? And you can generate a complete hex crawl game out of this for an overworld experience and combine it with the dungeon experience. And then, there's rules for settlements and things like that as well that you can visit. And all these are, they all have permanency, right? So they don't disappear whenever you're not playing. They actually have things that occur in them that can affect the game, like ongoing events and so forth. And so you have a generation system that is out of the box that you can create dungeons and scenarios to be able to play in. But, and this is key, is there's a full campaign for this that has been written too. So that's the dragon armor on the top right. That's the first book of a 3-part campaign, and so it's kind of, you have the full range of options there. You can go for the I guess, what would you call it in video game terms? The random creation or whatever that term is, but or you can go with the set on rails type campaign, or I think there's some parts of that are sandboxy too. So, a lot of options there. And then there is a lot of tracking with this. I have been using the Legend Keeper that we talked about a couple episodes ago to help me on mine. It's a huge multiplier for me to be able to track all the things that go on in the game rather than have to worry about physical sheets. But some people like that. Some people like to pencil things out, make a pencil map, so forth. But, to each his own on that. Now, one of the other things about D100 Dungeon is that Martin Knight has spent a great deal of time creating a physical component to the game as well, if you want to. So you can buy what's called the mapping game, and it is map tiles, physical tiles that you can lay out on your table, and it comes with the cards and with counters. And so if you want a full tabletop experience with that, you can have it. And but that's totally optional. It's not required. It's just some people like the tactile feel of having, a board and put a miniature on it and so forth like that, which you can do. So that's that's an option. And then lastly on that is there is a lot of online content and support for the game. So there's a Facebook group. I think there's a Discord, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, you can buy these from his site. But I got mine through Drive-Thru RPG, and the reason I did is because you can get a print on demand of these through Drive-Thru, and I did for the core book. So I do like to have a physical book, and it's there if you want it, right? So that for me is, there's a lot of parts to D100 Dungeon. The character customization is big on that. So if you like to be able to take a single character and take it in any direction that you kind of want, do you want to make a war mage, or do you want more of a thiefy type character, or a mix of the two? Whatever it is that you want, you can kind of make that happen with these rules. So it's an interesting option out there. It is a lot of tracking. So if you want something a little bit more streamlined, this may not be for you, but this is definitely a crunch game. I would say that for sure. So the next one, Cyberpunk Red. Now, you may find this interesting because Cyberpunk Red is not a solo game out of the box. It is a full tabletop game with a party and everything like that, right? But they have made a very in-depth single player mode for it that is available. And the cool thing about it is it has a lot of game oracles that you can roll against in the single player, in the solo book. And if you don't know what an oracle is, they are lists of terms that you can use to help drive the narrative. So for instance, if you want to know like what an NPC's attitudes are, or what their quirks are, or what they look like. There are oracle tables that you can roll against to quickly generate that kind of information. The same thing for plot hooks or even themes, equipment. Any of that kind of stuff are found on these oracle tables. And so you can quickly, with just a few rolls, come up with a kind of a guiding narrative to drive the role play, right? And then the other thing is it has a very well fleshed out custom mission generator in this. So whenever, Cyberpunk Red is about running jobs and gigs and things like that. And that's what the solo rules are centered around as well. And you can generate a pretty unique mission with this to run with a single character. The other thing that's good about a more traditional game like this is they already have a big catalog of things for Cyberpunk that are out right now already for the tabletop game. So you can draw on all that in your solo play as well. So from adventures to equipment books, and I think there's one that expands on net running and all that kind of thing. But if you don't want the depth of detail that Cyberpunk offers and some of the things like combat and net running, the solo mode does have a streamlined set of rules for those to help you out. So if you would like a little bit more loosey abstract experience with that, you can get it through the solo rules. But it fully supports using the regular rules as well if you enjoy the crunch of Cyberpunk out of the box. So this is something that I'm kind of excited to try because I do like the Cyberpunk game, and I have not tried Cyberpunk Red yet, and I have not tried running a solo game using a traditional RPG. So this is going to be something new. I'm going to try it out, and we'll see how that goes. But I'm looking forward to it just simply because it's plus it's a genre that I don't get to play very often, and that'll be a nice excursion from traditional fantasy, right? So, and I'm going through these pretty quickly, but if you have any questions or anything that you want to deep dive a little bit more on, I'd be glad to do that. Now the next one, this one is a little bit bigger topic because this is 4 Against Darkness. And it is a solo game, but you're playing 4 characters. And it is a more traditional D&D type game where you have a class that you follow for each one of the characters. But there's a lot that you can do with the game around that. So much like D100 Dungeon, 4 Against Darkness offers a lot of supplements that you can plug and play into the core game to expand your experience. So if you're wanting an overworld exploration ability to be able to hex crawl, go to towns and cities and things like that, there's a supplement for it. If you want more of a deep dive into an undead type campaign, they've got a book for that too. And they're not terribly expensive. I think most of the 4 Against Darkness books are like $10 or less. And there's also things to expand the flavor of it. So the one on the top right, you see there, the Twisted Dungeons, that is that takes the out of the box dungeon generation, and it allows a lot more options and events and ways to tweak your experience. So for instance, if you want more like exploring a cavern or a cave system, you can do that, where, as opposed to a traditional dungeon. Or if it's like some kind of a temple or whatever, you can do that with the expanded rules. There's also theme conversions for it. So I think it's called 4 Against Ragnarok, one for a Viking themed game. And there's a couple more. I think one of them is for some kind of steampunk, but I'm not entirely sure. You'd have to check it out and see. But and then there's also a lot of published adventures for it. So like the Echoes of the Dead that you see there, that's something that will, take you down a short adventure for that. But regardless, this one in D100 Dungeon, the core game out of the box experience lets you generate your own dungeon as you play, complete with traps and treasures and monster, random monsters and things like that you fight. Now, there's not a role playing element to it from the random generation stuff. At least from what I've read. Now, I may be wrong about that as I get into it, but there seems to be, you need one of the published adventures to kind of get more of the role play flavor out of it. But like I said, could be wrong. But the cool thing about the 4 Against Darkness is I've read the core rule book, and just the core book itself provides a pretty cool premise to start out from. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to, before I jump into any of the supplements or expansions, I'm just going to play it vanilla and try it like that, because it seems pretty cool that way. And I'm kind of excited to do that. Now, I keep talking about random dungeon generation. Now, the way that works in these games is you roll and it gives you a little template. Okay. Like, it gives you a room template. So you'll roll a die and you'll look at a grid and it'll have like a 4x2 room or some other, something else on it like that. And you take that and you draw it out on your grid paper, on your graph paper. And some of the games are specific about the shape of the room. Some of them are not. But regardless, I think what I'm going to do instead is I have an online tool called Incarnate, which is a mapping software, and I think I'm going to use that to map these as I go rather than draw them out, because I've got terrible penmanship and my drawing sucks. So I think I'm just going to make use of technology and try to do it that way. So, but yeah, 4 Against Darkness is a good way. So I would say that it is probably pretty close to the D100 dungeon in the style of game, except for you're running 4 characters, which for some may be interesting. You can kind of get bored with one. I can see that. So if you have 4 characters, you can maybe get a little of, headcanon role play going on between the 4 characters and stuff like that. So it's, I'm going to try all these, but I think from the fantasy side of it, I'm probably going to try 4 Against Darkness next. So anyway, that's my take on that one. Let's see what's up next. All right, we talked about this on the news a couple episodes back, and that's 5 Parsecs from Home, Planetfall. Now, this is from Modifius, and like D100 Dungeon, you can get this in PDF or a hardback format. Now, I have played the original 5 Parsecs from Home, and it is you play a small team of characters, and you do the same thing in Planetfall, but instead of traveling on a ship in space, you're a team of colonists that are on a new world in Planetfall. Now, the radical thing about the 5 Parsecs games is that it is a hybrid blend of an RPG and a miniatures combat game. So you have characters that you create, you have missions and a story that you go through, but when it comes to the fighting, you break out a board and you have miniatures, and it has full rules for measuring out your distance and moving your guys around and shooting and fighting and all that kind of thing. So it's if you like skirmish type fighting, which I do, from a miniature point of view, it's a really amazing way to get that experience blended up with an RPG, right? So it's in these games are this ecosystem of games is very well laid out from a book point of view too. So, I mean, it is crisp. It's clear where to go to in the book. The indexes are great. It's got flow charts to show you how you need to progress from one point in the narrative to another. I mean, the writing in it is top notch. It really is. So Planetfall, the cool thing about it is they introduce a base building mechanic. So if you play any PC games or any type of video games that have a base building kind of component, and you enjoy that, then this is probably something you'd get something out of too. So, when you're running, you have your colony and that's your base. And as you spend effort and money from the missions that you undertake, you can then pay for improvements to that colony that gives you expanded access to technology and everything else. So, there's not any certain miniatures that you're supposed to quote unquote use with this. You can use anything you've got. So I've got a bunch of Star Wars miniatures and 40K miniatures. That's what I'm going to use. So, and then if you don't really like the whole Planetfall thing, there are other options too. So, excuse me. You have the traditional 5 parsecs, which is ship-based. It's almost like the Traveler game, right? So you're going around on a trader or whatever, running missions. And there is the Tactics game, which is a full-fledged tabletop war game. You're talking in like 40K scale, where you can play. You can take the games that you're playing in regular 5 parsecs or Planetfall and scale it up to a bigger battle if you wanted to. And I don't have it listed here on the screen, but there's another version called Bug Hunt, which is like the movie Aliens. So you have a team of Marines or soldiers or whatever you want to call them, and they go on missions to attack the aliens and eradicate them from wherever. There's a mission generation for that and everything like that. It's pretty cool. So this one I'm probably going to do later in the year because I need to get some miniatures ready for it that I want to use, because I specifically want to use some of my Star Wars stuff that I haven't painted yet. But any of this looking good to you guys? Anything standing out? The other thing that I'll say about the five parsec stuff is, if you like the kind of game that they create and you don't want to play sci-fi, they got a fantasy version. It's called 5 Leagues from the Borderlands, and they have several expansions for that out as well. So if the sci-fi is not your cup of tea, you can dive into the fantasy side. But it's a unique thing. Now, another thing I'll say about it is, if you don't have miniatures, if you don't have a space to play, if you don't want to paint things, you can still do this. And there's a way to make it happen. There's on Steam, there is it's not a game, but you can purchase it there. It's called Tailspire. And the cool thing about Tailspire is that you can create your game board through this software. So if you want to set up a skirmish from one of these games, they have a tile set for sci-fi, and you can create a little sci-fi layout in 3D, and you can move it. It's an isometric view, so you can move it around. I need to spotlight that one of these days and show you how it looks. And you have miniatures on it, and you move the miniatures around on the screen in the layout that you set up. And if you are familiar with Hero Forge, you can buy the digital version of a character that you create in Hero Forge and import it into Tailspire, which is pretty darn cool in my opinion. So, so if you don't want to fool with the miniatures, but you kind of like that idea, but don't want the physical miniature aspect, look into Tailspire. And if there's much interest in it, I'll show it one day. We'll put it up on a stream, and we'll go a deep dive into Tailspire, and I'll show you how you can tie it into a tabletop game. Mark says, can the 4 Against Darkness, I'll put this up here. Can the 4 Against Darkness be used with canned adventures like the original D&D basic modules? Great question. So yes, it can. In fact, they have a specific supplement for it. 4 Against Darkness for, I think, the OSR. I can't remember the name of it, but it gives rules for how to convert old school D&D adventures, settings, and things like that to be used with 4 Against Darkness. It's really cool. And if you like some of the old stuff or some adventures that you want to try from D&D that you haven't got a chance to play, you can import that into 4 Against Darkness. So yes, that's definitely an option. Okay, so that's it for Planetfall. So that takes us to the last. Let's see. Jim says, is there any in the horror genre or detective style? Yes, there is. I have seen, I cannot remember the name of them offhand, but I will look and I'll highlight that. And I'll throw that in the description of the video for anybody that's interested whenever I find it. But there is some detective like style horror genre games that are solo playable. They're a little bit more choose your own adventure rather than freeform, because the whole part of that is the not knowing what's going to happen, right? So you can't really read ahead. So it's a little, the mechanics are light. So it's not real heavy mechanics wise, but it does give you an ability to play that kind of thing. So I'll try to find the ones that I saw and link it in the description. Okay, last one. Cur Nathalis, Into the Midnight Throne. So this is one that I have been playing already. And it is a single character game as well. There's no classes in Cur Nathalis. So this is a game that is fantasy, but it is set as a single. The story of it is you're a guy that for whatever reason has got on the wrong side of those in power. And so they decided to hang you high, but you didn't die. They threw you into the necropolis and you weren't quite dead. So you wake up in like a pit in the necropolis that is under the city that you're in, and you have to find your way out on your own. And so that's kind of it's an interesting premise. So essentially, you have nothing when you start the game. You have a half-burnt torch that you find, and your fists, essentially. So it's an interesting way to start out a game, but it was fun. It was fun, I'll tell you. This one does not have classes in it either. It is you can set your character up the way that you want, but there is something called masteries in the game, and you start out the game with 2 masteries, and the masteries they're themed like classes, but they're not as hard coded. So and you can gain a 3rd mastery during the game by acquiring a magical amulet that allows you to do that. But that's kind of how they're set up. And then it is a percentile mechanic like D100 Dungeon. In fact, it's I'll be honest with you, the mechanics in it are very, very similar to Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. So you have a D100 percentage system. When you fight the enemy, it is an opposed roll system. You roll 2 sets of percentile dice, one for you and one for the monster. And whoever gets underneath their skill will win the exchange in combat. If you both roll under your skill, then whoever rolled the highest wins the exchange. So that's it's a very interesting mechanic. There's the things that set Cur Nathalis apart are the details around dungeoneering. So it has a very detailed door and trap system. So if you're going through and trying to look for traps and unlock doors, it's a very detailed system on the kinds of traps that you can find and what you can do to mitigate those traps and deal with those. Hey, poor orc child, welcome to the stream. Thanks. I appreciate the sentiment there. I think I'm awful, but you're welcome to your own opinion. So yeah. So back to the dungeoneering side of it. The cool thing about Kernathalis as well is you don't have to use a randomly generated dungeon if you don't want to. For instance, on Drive Through RPG, there's a lot of just map compilation books that you can get. That's pre-made dungeon layouts that you can get and use with this game. So if you find a style or an author that makes some really cool maps and you want to use those in this game, you can. And then because the specific layout of the dungeon doesn't matter because you're rolling for a random chance. Now, the other thing tied into the dungeoneering is the use of a tension die. So as you're going through a level of a dungeon, this tension die is rolled with every room that you go into. And it's a countdown. So the die, so it starts out as like a D8. And every time you go into a room or a special event occurs, you have to roll the tension die. If you roll a 1 or a 2, it goes down to the next die step. So a D8 would descend to a D6. And then you keep doing that until eventually you get to a D4. And then when you roll a 1 or a 2 on a D4, then there's an escalation event that happens. Usually some kind of random wandering monster, or all the monsters get a special ability, or some kind of environmental effect starts taking place. And these ramp up and continue to stack up the longer that you're in a dungeon level. So the longer that you take, you can find more things, but the chance of dying gets ever harder as well. So it's a very interesting way to handle the mechanic of just sitting around and clearing out every room, so to speak. So it kind of actively discourages that. There's a camping mechanic in here too. So as you're traveling along the dungeon, you're going to need to rest every once in a while, and it gives you several things to do while you're camping that allows you to make extra gear for crafting point of view. And on the crafting, lighting is a big deal in Kernathalis. So if you have a torch, it has X number of uses. Each time you go into a room, you knock off a use of it. Eventually, you're going to end up in the dark, and then things get ugly. So you don't want that to happen. Yeah, so that's been my experience with Kernathalis so far. There is a downside to it in that there's not really an overall story going on. You have what's called an overseer in each dungeon level that you're going up against, and each one of those is unique, and they have a different flavor to them. But aside from that, there's not really any story in the game yet. I'm told through their Facebook page that this is in the works. But as of right now, you're really just adventuring dungeon to dungeon. You can find relics and cool magic items, things like that. But there's not a lot of narrative depth. I'll put it that way. So I'm going to continue on until, to kind of see how this goes for myself, and I'll let you know how that goes. And that goes for the rest of these too, right? So yeah, as I go along through the year, I'm going to kind of go back and touch on these with you guys and let you know where I've been, what I've found that's cool, what I really liked, what I didn't like, and let you know how that plays out. I am interested on Cyberpunk Red probably the most because I think it's going to be challenging to use a traditional RPG in a solo format, but I've heard great things about it. So looking forward to it. So yeah, that's kind of what I had for tonight as far as content for you guys. It's the end of the year. There's not a lot of news going around or new releases and things like that. I did look, but it's kind of dry right now, so I don't have anything new for you guys tonight on that front. Mark says, from a solo gaming standpoint, wasn't there a supplement for the One Ring 2? Have you played that? So yes, the answer is yes, there is. It is called the Strider expansion, and it allows for solo play for the One Ring. No, I haven't played that, but you bring up a good point, and that's something that is on my list, but I haven't. It's not on, I guess, the top 5 like what we've looked at tonight. I guess the reason why for that is I feel so strongly about the One Ring game and that I like it so much that I hate to just play it by myself. I would really rather just play that with you guys, with the group, because it's kind of a shared experience, and I feel like I'm almost doing it a disservice by playing it solo. I know that sounds weird, but I'm a huge Lord of the Rings guy, so that's that's just how I feel about it. But yeah. And, to your point, Mark, there are a lot of solo supplements that are coming out for traditional games right now. So as I'd say over the last year, almost every system that I have seen released, especially through Kickstarter or crowdfunding, has some kind of solo mode that's attached to it. Like Shadow Dark is a good example. Shadow Dark, if you've never heard of it, is it's a reskin of 5e, but it's more in the lines of the OSR. And it's a great game. We haven't played it with our group yet, but I have played it at convention before, and it was fun. But that one came out with a solo mode, and a lot of people play it in that way right now. So like I said, there's plenty of others that are introducing solo modes to their existing RPGs. I was trying to think if there was another example Coriolis, the one that I reviewed here a couple of episodes ago, that has a solo mode as well. So, I mean, that's another great example of something that you can do. Forbidden Lands, from Free League, has a solo mode, and that game is perfectly suited to it because it's very much a hex crawl nature type game, and it's practically made for a solo dive. So yeah, you're asking the right questions. There's a lot of opportunity for that with more traditional games, but I looked on Drive-Thru a few days ago when I was kind of getting ready for this. There are so many solo games that have been put out in, I'd say, the last year that I think it would be impossible to cover them all. I mean, there are a ton of them in all kinds of genres. As to the quality of all of them, I couldn't tell you, but, you'd have to kind of pick and choose and see what you like. But if you're interested in solo games, I would definitely go and search for it on Drive-Thru and to see what's out there, because there's an ever-growing pool of games to be experienced, I think. So, well, that's all that I had, unless anybody has anything else you guys wanted to talk about. We're tomorrow is the game day for our group. Our in-person group, and we're going to be going back into, and we're playing Adventurer Conqueror Kings 2nd edition. That's the game system that we're playing, and it's set in Mystara. So my character is a barbarian from Norwald. I think that's how you say it. Yeah, Norwald. And we just finished doing kind of a light version of Keep on the Borderlands, and not sure where we're going next, but we'll see where it takes us. And then my in-person group, we alternate playing 2 different games. So one side of that is Adventure Conqueror King, and the other is we're playing Twilight 2000, the 4th edition from Free League, and I'm running that one. So that's something that we play alternated with Axe. And Twilight has been a pretty interesting game so far. Seems like the players are having a good time with it. Yeah, Jim says we're taking over the town. Yeah, you are. Well, you're going to try. I'll put it that way. You're going to try. Well, I don't know exactly how successful you'll be at it because your face man. Let's just say let's say he's got some strong opinions. So we'll see how that shakes out. But that game has been a pretty interesting play so far because I know I have played the original Twilight back from the early 90s, and there's a couple of others in the group that I think have played it as well. And it seems like everybody thinks that this new edition is a worthy successor. Abrasive? You saying he's abrasive? I'll let you say he's abrasive. I won't say he's abrasive. I'm the GM. I can't be biased. Okay, so yeah. So that's what I'm playing right now. Still doing Cur Nathalis, but I think I'm gonna jump into 4 Against Darkness pretty quick, and start taking a look at that as well. And in person, I told you what we're doing for in person. I also have another group that is playing on off weeks, and we're doing Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. We're doing the Enemy Within campaign. That's the kind of the traditional game for that. This will be my second time through that. So I've already played that through once with a group. That campaign took a couple of years to resolve. And so I'm doing a fresh set of eyes on the campaign. So I'm really interested to see the direction they take it, if they kind of take the same paths or if they do things completely differently. So it'll be interesting to see. So thanks, everybody. I do appreciate your time tonight, and hope you had a good time taking a look at some of the solo stuff I'm going to be jumping into this year. And I appreciate the chat. So if there's nothing else, then I think I'm probably gonna shut it down for the night. As always, if you enjoyed what you saw tonight, if you enjoyed what you heard, give me a subscribe and hit the like button. If you didn't like it, I certainly appreciate your time, and hopefully, if you're around again in the future, you'll find something to your liking. So, thanks everybody, and have a good night.